Call to order, please. Folks, welcome to tonight's translated Committee of the Whole meeting of Clarence and Rockland that was held on November the 7th, 2018. Before we start up, the mayor is just letting people chat about at the council table, and then we'll get on to business very, very soon. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope you've had a nice couple of days since the election, and here we go. I call the meeting open at 8:16, 8:17, or 8:15, as the lady would like. I prefer 8:18, Mr. Mayor. It has a nicer sound. Fine. I move that the agenda be adopted as presented, saving except for the item that we discussed at the previous meeting, as well as the addition of two motions, right, that we need to deal with? Two motions? Yes. All right, then. Anything else? Yes, there's also the sale of cannabis matter. Yes, these notices of motion are going to be added under 6 and 6.2 for the ATV and 6.3 for the festival, right? Those are things we discussed at previous meetings tonight. Yes, indeed. All those in favor, then, of the amended agenda, as it now stands? Yes, fine. Councillor Zant seconds for the adoption. All those in favor, carried then. Disclosure of pecuniary interests? None. Delegations? None. Petitions? None. Notice of motion. Councillor Jean-Marc Lalonde will read. We'll go on with yours first. It was moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Boisvert. Councillor Levert. Well, Councillor Boisvert, that's fine. Whereas the 2019 Clarence Western Festival will not be held. Hold on. We're dealing with your cannabis motion first, 6.1. I apologize. You must have smoked a joint, Jean-Marc. You're lost in paperwork tonight. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for calling me back to order. I apologize. You'll see the difference in my behavior when I actually smoke one. All right. Whereas Bill 36 of the Ontario Cannabis Statute Law Amendment Act received royal assent on October 17, 2018, and whereas the municipal government or governments can opt out of cannabis sales in their communities by January 22nd, 2019, and whereas the City of Clarence and Rockland already has Bylaw 2016-62 regulating smoking in public spaces and places and workplaces, be it resolved that the City of Clarence and Rockland allows the sale of cannabis but only in the Liquor Control Board of Ontario LCBO local stores. Seconded by Councillor Boisvert. Yes, Councillor Chouanière. I think we're too early in the game. The decision hasn't been taken whether it's only be sold through the LCBO outlets or through private outlets. We can't decide that. Yes. They said that no, it was not going to be sold through the LCBO. It was going to be through a private. Well, I'm saying this here. The previous government stated that it would only be sold through LCBO outlets. And I spoke to other municipalities, and they'll also do the same thing. They're going to go through the LCBO outlets because they say that people have proper training. Those that work at the LCBO already, there won't be as much danger. Well, alcohol is sold in grocery stores and through private companies. What's the difference between this and cannabis? Councillor Grimard, I just have a short point. I think it behooves Mr. Mayor, the new council, to take this decision. We have a lot of elements missing right now. That's a moral question with regards to citizens of our city, saying, are we ready morally so that everyone understands we're only the second country in the world that has legalized. A lot have decriminalized, but we are the only it's the second country that legalized it. We have to talk with people on a ward by ward basis. If we privatize the sales, somebody can decide to sell right in my neighborhood, on Laurier Street or in the smack dab in the middle of the village, and we have to think about the neighbors around those areas selling cannabis. As far as I'm concerned, I need medical information as to the difference in between cannabis and alcohol, what it can generate as positive or not as positive within the confines of our community with regard to the use, before taking a decision with regards to the well-being of our city. It's easy to obtain this on through the internet. Do we need a bona fide store selling cannabis within the confines of the city of Clarence and Rockland? We don't know. Mrs. Collier, you got some information, right, by the lawyers the other day?
We're going to have a presentation made at council here.
Correct. On the 17th of December, once the new council is in place, they will receive a presentation from our lawyers with the aspects of.
So maybe before we take a decision on this, we should wait for the information that comes from legal side.
I have no problem touching the fit for duty and all the municipal employees or the municipality as a whole for our employees. I have no problem treating that now. I'm more reserved on the establishment being put out in the public without having the chance to understand everything and also getting the feedback from the residents. But I have no problem for the internal policies to discuss them, no problem at all.
But I think I don't want just internal policies, I want to know the legality and everything, the other details about sales and all this, because really we don't know much about the whole thing, so.
And also we have no idea how we're going to manage if anybody decides to sell it on the ground, So again, like if we cannot regulate something from now, we cannot make a decision.
Well, I don't think our bylaw can even do anything about
That's
that,
right.
can they? It's a police matter.
Exactly.
It becomes a police matter.
Yeah.
Monsieur Laval?
I think it would be a good idea also if we had some type of survey through our municipality or as kind of a referendum of some kind or something like that. And also,
elected us to take those decisions.
I know, but still, I think I'd like to know the pulse. I've already knocking on 800 doors. I've had a lot of pulse of people how they feel about that, and I think most of the people agree that it should be like some type of government agency that sells it, either with the web or, especially in our municipality, we have two liquor board. We have one at the south end and one at the north end. So I'd like for those people to sell it because they're equipped for,
They said you do not have that choice.
Yeah?
They said do not have the choice. The government said LCBO will not be dealing with that. It'll be private businesses.
Let's find out the rules and everything on the 17th. We'll find out about that also. Be better informed, and then from there we can take a decision. Oui, Monsieur Laval.
Monsieur le maire, actuellement.
Mr. Mayor, at present, we know that Ottawa has already stated that there will be proceeding to a consultation process. Municipalities have to take a clear and cogent position as of the 22nd of January. We have to be ready then. And if by the 22nd we haven't taken a decision, we can always say no. Things can still change. But if we say yes, it's difficult to take a step back.
We do a survey. I think
It's up to council.
I've heard mixed comments
The
tonight.
problem with the survey, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind me saying, is that you can have one person that's going to be for it vote once and one person that's going to be against it vote 10 times. So I have an issue with the survey actually being accurate. I don't know. They elected us to take those decisions. We can have consultations. It's open to the public if they want to come and give us their opinions on whether they want it or not. But at the end of the day,
We can announce that we will have this decision or a public meeting, come to one of the reunions. If somebody, question period is
even have it
there.
over there if they want. That'd be a good location.
Yeah.
But there's always also 2 weeks between when we present it
Yep.
at the plenary, so people have 2 weeks to react to it and come to the meeting.
Exactly.
I think we have lots of time, so we'll wait for the presentation on the 17th and go from there. Okay.
Monsieur le maire, la raison principale, par exemple.
Mr. Mayor, the main reason behind all of this is that After having discussed this with many individuals here in Rockland, I was opposed, sternly opposed to having a point of sale in Rockland. But the answer was it's best to have one individual, one spot that will sell good drugs instead of the drugs that are sold off on the grand bar on the black market. All I have to do is make 3 clicks on the internet and order there, and I have individuals. Or it takes 30 seconds 30 seconds to have on internet, 1 minute to make your selection, and it's delivered at your place within 24 hours through delivery services. Well, 24 hours. Well, it all depends on the companies. There are those supply medical marijuana still have access to 24-hour delivery. Well, on the 17th of December, we'll have more information. So I propose that we defer that particular motion or any decision on this. It's only a notice of motion in any event. So do you want this to be put on the next regular meeting of Council's agenda? The author of the notice of motion will give me the directive. Well, I'm the author. As mentioned, the new council will be taking a decision as to this, so we won't put that on the agenda of the next regular meeting of council? No, that's right. Are you still interested in taking a look? Well, we'll have the presentation on the 17th of December as to what's going on, and we'll see. Next one, Mr. Levert, next notice of motion. Which one shall we deal with? The ATV. The ATV motion. Fine. Whereas the United Counties of Prescott and Russell authorizes free roaming of ATVs from the 427 Russell Road until the intersection of Drouin Road, that Council proposed to prepare an amendment to the regulated bylaw for the consideration of council with the intent of allowing ATV driving on Chemin Drouin from Russell Road right up until La Rose Forest. Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. You see, what happened was that the United Counties suggested of going down Saint Felix. I said that one should go down Drouin Road because once you get onto Saint Felix on Drouin, there are no houses there. So we run the risk of having close to none or close to no complaints. But this part of Drouin is municipally run, and the other part on Russell Road is maintained by the United Counties. So we have to approve both in one fell swoop. Now, the reason, Mr. Mayor, why the counties wanted to proceed that way on St. Felix Road was that it joined up to their trail that goes on to Bouvier. Yes, but they can still... Yeah, but see, they have no trails around the Follette-à-Lose area, but that's the county's trail. You mean the pathway leads on to Bouvier? Yes, there's a trail that runs south of Bouvier in the wooded area. There's a trail there. Take a look at the ATV map that's drawn, and so they have no trail around Drouin. Well, Mr. Prévost had no difficulty in going down Drouin. But as things stand right now, the only trails there are snowmobiles, cross-country skiing, and sleighs that are pulled by dogs, basically, or dog sleighs. Well, I spoke of this with those of the ATV clubs, and they're in agreement with that. Well, of course they're in agreement with it. So what's the problem? It's all of the other clubs you'll impact. Well, it doesn't mean that they're going to travel on the same trail. They don't have the same chase. The La Rose Forest is the United Counties' problem. Mr. Prévost has no problem with that. I don't know why you'd have a problem with that. Why don't we have them go by Bouvier? No, it's going to be too lengthy along Russell Road. So I think we'll have a bit more information. So if the county has no objection in having ATVs circulating on Drouin, I don't know why we'd object to that. The fact is that you go down St. Felix and you'll have some four-wheel vehicles driving by there, and we'll be receiving a slew of complaints, and the bylaw enforcement officers will go down there. Well, if they go down to Drouin, they go down St. Felix all the way, and then, no, they remain on Drouin right up to the end, and Mr. Prévost said they'd have no problem in joining up with the trails there. I see. Fine, fine. All those in favor then? Carried. That's fine. That's fine. Fine, fine. All right. Let's go on to there might be some other contentious comments that will be made during the question period. There might be other ATVs. Well, of course, they're not going to be against this principle because we're giving them additional trails. We're giving the ATV folks to the additional trails. All right. Let's go on to 6.3. Mr. Mayor? Well, thank you, Mr. Lalonde. You're very kind. Mr. Lalonde, are you the one with the festival? Yes? Yes. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Levert and not Boisvert. Whereas the 2019 Clarence Western Festival will not be held because of problems encountered with the availability of installations, and whereas the festival generates each and every year economic windfalls for the city of Clarence and Rockland, and whereas the city has some of its installations within the Rockland sector, be it resolved that the city of Clarence and Rockland offers the Clarence and Rockland Festival, Western Festivals, the opportunity to make use of the Simon Park and venues of the within the Jean-Marc Lalonde Arena to facilitate the organization of the 2019 Western Festival. I'll second it. Mrs. Chouanier. Well, normally, are there any costs associated with that? Because are we talking here about non-profit organizations here? Are there groups that have already... well, let me answer this question, Mr. Mayor. When they appeared before council originally, they proposed to have it staged in Rockland, and the service objected then and will still object again for logical reasons, because this space contemplated is not conceived to receive that many recreational vehicles. You know, we're going to be running the risk of damaging the main baseball venue here in Rockland, especially if we're going through a run of bad weather during that time. This is the first time I hear about it. Mr. Levert, what are the problems? Save and except the baseball field that might be a problem. Well, on the 17th, we're making a presentation with regard to the Jean-Marc Lalonde situation, and you'll see the concerns we have with regard to the arena at the same time. No, I'm talking about the problems here that you've raised concerning the Clarence proper related problems. Well, we're supposed to build a baseball field or a baseball diamond, baseball field, and apparently they want to park their RVs on that particular field, and they want us to drain that parcel of land that has not been drained up to now, so we don't have a budgetary impact as to what's that's going to cost us, and we have no other ideas whether the storm sewer system here can take in the excess of effluent going into our water system then. And they're asking that all of these things be looked into and resolved. Now, we wish to accommodate, and the festival organizers are asking that they're accommodated in all of those respects. And we have to take a look at how much it's going to cost to address individual items. If I have an item that's going to cost me $30,000 or $35,000 to take care of, and I have to tap into my capital expenditures project to do so, and then I have to type into that as of January, I couldn't respect the criteria set out in that gentleman's official letter. That's why the mayor responded in his response letter sent over to Mr. Eric Hawk, yes, that this was going to be dealt with by the new council because the requests that he'd made was compelling us to exert budgetary pressure. As mentioned, this is something we have to take a look at quite closely. We accommodated them for the past 2 years, but to ask us that, they need this and they need that, well, there might be another logistics involving the Jean-Marc Lalonde Arena without making use of the Parc Simon. Parc Simon? Lac Simon? No, Parc Simon Park, please. And we can make use of the arena parking facilities And this year they obtained the permission to make use of the school board property. I don't know why they couldn't do this with both of the schools that we have here in Rockland without making use of the Simon Park facilities. You see, here, here's where we stand. Let's take a look at what happened with the festival the past 2 years that it happened here. Most of the people that organize festivals, that takes them about 10 or 15 years to organize, they organize it within the span of 2 years. Well, let's wait that the new councils deliberate with those. Let's take a look at their requests right now. I believe that we offered them a lot, and to turn around and ask many other things, demand many other things. I understand that it exerts a lot of budgetary pressures on our part. Well, if we abandon this venue, then we might have to take up another venue. Well, the new council will be deciding this. Well, Mr. Mayor, I was initially approached by Councillor Levert and then by Mr. Saint-Cartier. He'd given me 2 reasons. Firstly, they can't make use of the baseball field, and secondly, they can't make use of the canteen there. Those are the 2 major points. Well, initially, yes, but there had more than 2 points that were of concern to me. So I immediately spoke again to Mr. Boisvert, to Councillor Levert, Mr. Boisvert, and Lac Simon. Things are going roundly and swimmingly tonight. Yes, of course. In and around the arena, there's sufficient space, and outside of the baseball diamond, there's a lot of space. And again, the Saint Trinité School, all around that area where buses turn, there's a place there that people can readily park. Why don't we ask them to come up with alternatives with regards to available space? What the municipality does have that can cater to their needs? Well, I'd like to try something to offer them something and not lose them. Councillor Lalonde. The problem centers around the fact that we have budgetary pressures that might be exerted, and we have no position to take a decision because we're in a lame duck situation. But when we'll tackle with this with the new council, we'll sit down with community services and ask them what are we able to do, what we cannot do. And after this, there will be a determination made as to whether we can do this in Clarence or elsewhere. And we're in this particular situation because we're in a lame duck situation. And this was clearly explained in the letter that was sent to Mr. Hawke. To ask them that they wait until this be deliberated by the new council. So I move that this be deliberated at the next meeting, by the next elected council. Fine. You know what needs to be done. Well, the author of the notice of motion has to say, well, I abandoned this motion. No, it's better to have it deferred. You want it to be discussed at the next regular meeting? No, not at the regular meeting. We'll just remove it, and it will be discussed in December. But it won't come back as a notice of motion, but as a budgetary item then. Fine. Yes, that's right. Let's go on to the report from the United Counties of Scott Russell. Nothing much. We'll see when we come back. Let's go on now to committee and staff reports. 9.1, the 2017 CIH Academy Financial Statements. Who is to make the presentation? Well, Mr. Mayor, my name is Mr. Blanchard, and I'll proceed with a short presentation with regards to the financial health of CIH Financial Academy. Very good. Good morning, or good evening, should I say. Good evening. I suppose that you already have a copy of the audited financial statements. I'll go rather quickly through them. I have Annie and Luc from the Academy if you have any specific questions with regards to figures or information given to you tonight. So pages 2 and 3 has the independent auditor's report. The audit was conducted in keeping with the auditor's rules. It was completed as of the 31st of August 2017. And this auditor's report deals, of course, with nonprofit organizations. Now, our auditor's opinion, because financial statements were finalized as of the 1st of October 2018, the audit has been completed and financial statements has been approved. We've come to the conclusion that this is non-divisive opinion that gives a faithful picture of all activities for 2017 and part of 2016. That was this. Can we discuss this in public, Mr. Mayor? Oh, the auditor's report was contained on page 2 and 3. Let me ask a technical question. When I read this, I'm sorry, why are we discussing financial statements of a private company in public? I know that we made public use of public money or use of public money to proceed to an audit, but it's still, well, this is not a private company. This is a non-profit company. Well, I'm not arguing. I'm just wondering why. Mr. Keogh?
Council, the original agreement with CIH required audited financial statements. So this is something that should have been happening every year. The council should have received audited financial statements. Those weren't done in the past for various reasons.
Okay.
But now we have asked BDO to do it on behalf of the city. So they're here to present them to us. So if there's any questions for council, it's an open.
But I think Mr. Zan is saying, should it be public information?
It's absolutely public information,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
We have an agreement with CIH that they are to present their financial
Okay.
statements
That's
to
fine.
us.
I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Councilor, Madam.
Continue on then, ma'am. Well, that's fine. That's fine. All right then. Fine. Page 2 and 3 sets out the auditor's report. Modalities. Page 4 deals with the financial situation from the 31st of August to 2017 to the 31st of August 2016 and the 1st of September 2015, where the new accounting principles have been adopted. I don't know if you have any specific questions, and I have to go through that very quickly. And if you have any questions, you let me know. Assets compare from year to year are hovering around $5 million. Immovable assets, net liabilities, and well, net assets, $1.8 million, and the discrepancy, as was expected at the end of year, was $5.7 million. So one can see, if you take a look at the results, that it's clearer then. The state of evolution of discrepancies. Page 5, we note that there's a $5.7 million amount at the end of 2017. The financial statements, we have the two financial statements, one that deals with the arena and one that deals with activities separate from the hockey academy. Page 6, the arena, income $2 million per year, expenditures $1 million. That shows that there's insufficient of products on charges, insufficient a number of products on charges, losses at the end of 2017. Can we ask questions at the end of her presentation? What's most easy? It could be at that time if you ask questions. Fine. Why did you pardon a certain amount of loss in 2017 or 2016 and not 2017? Why did you forget some debt losses in 2016 and 2017? Well, a part of that debt was reduced or applied against that particular debt you're referring to with regard to the study that was conducted. But we're talking here about only one event that was subject to a study that was commissioned. Well, for example, if it was a study that was commissioned, the arena clarified that the debt was that much of a percentage of the amount. I see. So the city of Clarence and Rockland had a long-term reduction with regards to a long-term purchase that it was reducing on long-term basis in its books. Page 7 gives us results with regard to the school expenditures of $3.1 million, approximately a $100,000 deficit. Page 8 financial statement as to what's in the bank at the beginning as opposed to the end of the year. 238,000 in 2016, and you had a negative 375,000 operational expenditure, and offset by an $175,000 positive income. Page 9 and 10, the accounting methods that were adopted at that point in time, those that apply to nonprofit organizations. Of course, it stands to reason there are some choices to be taken. The accounting of products, that's the method of report that is made use of for contributions, for example. So, if at the time in which they're earned or they're recognized, that's the most common way of dealing with nonprofit organizations. We put in an estimate as to how long it's going to take to amortize investments in assets, and financial instruments are also assessed at their net value once they are cashed in. So I believe that there's nothing to specify with regards to the whole of the report. Mrs. Report, as save and except what I've mentioned. Now, the end of the year, well, the end of 2017, Councillor Chouanière. Now, at the end of the fiscal year 2017, what is the year that the municipality finally needs to pay out to be able to compensate for the shortfall? But we still have a debt to pay. Where can I find this information? This is not a calculation that we made. That was not part and parcel of our mandate. We were asked to audit from your financial statements, and I looked at your revenue and expenditures, but we were not called upon to perform those calculations. I see. Income and expenditures. So the analysis will be performed by whom? By you? Mr. Kehoe.
Clarify the question. You're asking how much of the deficit of CIH in a year the city will have to pay?
Yeah.
There is no agreement for us to pay for any deficits with CIH. If you recall, Mr. Mayor, we came to you, us, suggesting that they are having financial difficulty. We then asked council that we should get an audit to verify that that's in fact happening, and this is what you have before you now. And yes, they are losing money every year, but we're not covering their deficit. It's CIH that's covering their deficit right now. Based on council receiving this report, I have spoken with Monsieur Bordeaux, and I guess this report is before you tonight, just so that you're clear in terms of the finances for the last 2 fiscal years, what's happened. The ball is in, I think, CIH's court, if I could use a tennis analogy, and that he will need to write council to say what he needs from council in order to keep operating the facility. So he has to let you know what he needs from you in order to continue operating.
So the obligation towards the debt, because we borrowed the money for the CIH, so are they still able to meet the requirements for the debt?
Mr. Mayor, as you recall, last year, council forgave the payment. They deferred the payment. They were making payments of $150,000 to the city on their debt, and we deferred that payment as a result of them restructuring and relooking at the financial organization and coming, doing the audit, and so that is deferred right now.
Only deferred, so they still have the obligation to reimburse that amount. And we're hoping we would be able to.
So right now, the amount is 2.4 million that's owed on that debt by CIH.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
One of the questions we had originally was, is CIH Academy I don't know how to say that, comme est-ce qu'il y a des dépenses?
The expenditures that are awarded to arena operations are in line with what we can expect or ought to expect with regards to the management of this particular scope of arena. In other words, has the deficit that they've accumulated with the arena through the CIH operation, is it tantamount to good management? This is the kind of question I'm asking. Well, I could start answering, but I don't know if I'm clear in the question I'm asking. No. Look, we're conducting an audit on financial statements. We can't make a comment as to whether it's good management or not. However, we received all of the data, and we mentioned that from a material standpoint, everything was audited properly. There were no significant expenditures that would fall from the school that would fall under the arena column. What's presented there exists. Is it good management? We can't make a comment as to that. One thing I look at, one of the expenditures, advertising promotion, the use of the space that they make. If they had a company there, they'd be charged rental fees for advertising and so on and so forth. I don't see that line item. Look, we request a financial statement. Management study is completely different. And apart from that, but does the Academy really reaps in as much income as it needs to? Well, I believe that they look into that. Well, they categorize what was done. No, but I understand why he's asking that question, why she'd be in a capability to answer. In fact, if some entries were assigned to the Academy where they ought to have been assigned at the arena, and where expenditures incurred by the arena ought to have been incurred by the CIH Academy, and if there had been mistakes, if there had been a lot of mistakes like that, she states that there are about 40 or so errors. No, these are adjustment bookkeeping practices here. It doesn't lead to any, foregone conclusions. In the audit process that we entered into, is we looked into samplings, and we took a look at the sampling taken from the arena procedures and the school procedures involved in all of that. So everything that behooved the Academy expenditures and everything that behooved the arena expenditures or activities were in proper categories, yes, they were properly categorized. Councillor Lalonde, if I take a look at the deficit of the arena and the school, we're taking a look at $286,128, page 6, page 7. And there has been a lot of improvement as opposed to last year. At last year, we'd hovered around the $443,000 worth of operational deficit. Well, yes, but sometimes we're much higher sometimes. Well, I believe that we wanted to have figures. We've been given those figures. We wanted to look at other options at this point in time. We just wanted to wonder whether the proper invoices were treated by the proper people through the proper venues. Yes, that's fine. But we've gone through this exercise to determine whether or not the situation was run good and proper, if I might use that term. Yes, well, and that's what we asked for, basically, Mrs. Chouanier. But we'd like to determine what the total debt is, if they are able to pay down those debts, if they're able to survive. Well, that's going to be the next step that we look into. As things stand right now, we're looking at the financial statement. Mr. Kehoe, Mr. Mayor, it's clear from Mr. Bourdeau's comments in the past when we entered into meetings with him that things cannot continue on in this fashion. He's going to come back to us for an amount that the city will be called upon to pay for CIH to be able to continue to pay as being manager of the arena. And it will be a decision of the town to determine whether they want to do so or not. That's something that will come up at the new council. I understand. But if they exited the project, in my view of things, when a business enters into a project, they needs a certain amount of safety. Well, that it gives a certain amount of safety to the municipality that if they can't meet their obligations. I believe that the municipality in this instance took all of the risk, and the CIH people didn't assume all that many risks in keeping with what the municipality will receive. Well, I wouldn't go so far in my comments as you have, Mrs. Joignard. Let's not forget that the residents, the Tomlinson Center was built. Those were not expenditures that had any bearing on this, had nothing to do with the arena and CIH. Mr. Bourdeau built that. Yeah, but we're the ones called upon to pay for this. Well, we're not paying for the residences. Yes, but if they have all of this surplus of expenditures and we're obliged to pay them with all that money, they continue managing the arena. Looks, as things stand right now, we have a $1.2 million debt for a project that cost over and above $18 million. So everybody took risks when entering into this into this venture. Mr. Bourdeau had put in a lot of his own money in all of this time, money, and machinery. He worked for near to nothing. Mr. Bourdeau, played a very important part in all of this. All I'm saying is that it's regrettable for this major project there had not been a backup system. We had not required that he'd set aside an amount in trust to ensure that if we were to encounter such difficulties that we had at least a financial security blanket, basically, or security. Are there any other questions on to the financial statement? Mr. Desnoyers, do you have any other comments? Or fine. So the resolution then, as it stands, yes. Thank you, by the way. Thank you very much. The CIH Academy financial statements for the period ending August 31st, 2017 be received as information, and the Committee of the Whole recommends that the City Council approves the payment of the additional fees of $19,050 to BDO Canada for the CIH Academy audit mandate from the contingency. Yes, audit mandate, yes, from the contingency 2018 operational budget. Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. All those in favor? Thank you then. Well, if the French language disappears, we might start, adopting have a nice weekend. You have even more anglicization of the French language in France. Really? All right. Accounts receivable write-off that the Committee of the Whole recommend. I'm sorry. Yes, that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council to authorize write-offs of 3 accounts receivable totaling $29,125.21 as set out in Appendix A with regards to bad debt. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Let's go on now to the 9.2 amendment to zoning bylaw 2164 Landry. I move that the report be received as for information purposes. Fine. Seconded by Mr. Lalonde. What's important to determine is that it's reassuring now that we've realized a bit of savings. So things are going quite well in spite of everything that happened. I had one question, Mr. Campo, and I forewarned you of my question here. Why are we proceeding to soil tests? And we're told that it's clay, and then we get there, and then we have to remove a whole bunch of rocks in there and pay for extras. Well, given the major scope of work there. Let's say on Russell Road, for example, we're talking about 520. Those two areas in which rocks were found, they were found in between those two sampling areas that we sampled. We're practically finished now, but there's a stretch of approximately 200 meters, and there's another 200 and some odd meters completely separated, two stretches of where we happened upon very fragile rocks. Well, we could, remove that with the mechanical shovel. So that's how geotechnical works go. There's another resident told us that he had to break a rock to build his house. We went by the front of his residence and we didn't find any rocky area. That's how we're talking about major stretches. Yes, there are 3.4 kilometers along Russell. 12 or so test pits had been drilled at that point in time. It's just a stretch of bad luck. We'd come up against the rocks for approximately a 200-meter stretch. So things went quite well. Another question, Mr. Lalonde. Just one other question, Mr. Capo. The hookup for people in that area, when will it start up? You mean for Landry? Yes. This last Friday, the residents received a notice, and they can connect as of now. Mrs. Chouanière, myself, and Mrs. Simard had a resident setting out some of his concerns, and I'd already made you aware of what's happening right now. And this one was making his concerns with regards to adults. Yes, it's going to be adjusted. And we just wanted to make sure that the piping put in will be put in at a proper depth. Yes, well, the explanation behind all of this is that you have to understand the design was laid out in 2012 and 2000, and the project has been shelved since 2013. The WSP company had drawn up a design at that time, but they've changed names since then. I believe that all of the staff that had been involved in the design at that time is not there anymore. We're dealing with new individuals. Those new people that have arrived there modify the design just a tad bit. So the water main is not as deep. Well, it's at its proper depth, but the original design had prescribed a lower depth. Given the high and lows of the road profile that had been drawn out, there was only one line that caused us concern, where the water main was too deep. So we've minimized excavation works. Well, not excavation, but drilling work. So the water main is not put in as deep. And of course, the hydrants have been ordered at a certain height, and everything's going to be fixed. On Landry, there was some excavation that was made, and that's normal, of course. But water that mainly stems from the road seeps onto agricultural roads or properties. And Mr. Mayor and myself, we went by those roads and we noticed those. Now, have these adjustments or these corrective measures that need to be applied will be applied very soon, because we've noticed that there's water seeping there. Well, the contractor certainly undertakes to reestablish or to repair what needs to be repaired and bring back to its initial state that particular area. So this particular farmer's area or property wasn't all that high in the past, but still, we still have a bit of cleaning to be performed where the excavation was performed. Once the cleaning will have been proceeded with, it will help out quite a bit. But those are areas in which the back of the ditch was quite low, shall remain low. But at a very minimum, we repaired those areas that needed to be repaired, and to ensure that water, traveled its proper course. Yes, it was the builder's mandate to reestablish things as they were beforehand. Mrs. Chouanière, well, we still have another good weeks worth of work still. Maybe by Christmas or we'll have something. Are they still going to be digging? Well, it depends on the temperature, of course, that prevails. No, there are some ongoing paving works. We're talking about minimal paving works, nothing major. And the drilling they'll be proceeding with won't be they'll be drilling at a proper time of the year, but because the soil surface doesn't freeze up automatically. So everything should be operational as of mid of December around the Russell area. And the orders have changed. There were some additions there. The school was added on. That's going to be paid by the school board. Yes, that's right. Those are fees that will be reimbursed to us. This is just a system that we need to contend with that was established with the finance department. It's easier. It's easier to manage monies involved in this particular fashion. All of those commercial services involving, let's say, the school that has to contend with a new developer in Bourget, we issue a change order in that particular situation. It's easier to quantify the figures that come into play, and I believe it's noted in the report. They're going to be 100% recuperated from the residents. The contractor performs good work along Russell Road. The traffic lights are up right now. The road has been cleaned up. I go by there on Friday night. He's cleaned the roadway, drains the land also in respect to the farmers around there, and it's even nicer now than it looked beforehand. And this project is going to help out many individuals, especially around Clarence Creek. 2 years ago, there was a lack of water, and it's a necessity. 41 out of 43 had water-related problems then, at that time. It's important to note that in Clarence Creek, next spring, and it's not within the STP contractor's mandate at this point in time, we'll have a pressure-reducing valve that will be installed on Landry closer to La Bondée to manage the water pressure there, because once we'll have connected the system, we've just done so, but we have to test out the pressure situation. So in the springtime, we'll have another smaller installation put in to manage the water pressure, but it won't prevent the system from being operational immediately in any event. Well, the fire hydrants for Bourget, by the way, before proceeding to looping, did you have the proper pressure? Did you need the trucks to offset the water pressure? No, for Bourget, I have the exact figures. They had much better pressure than in Clarence Creek. Now, with the looping, are we alleviating that problem? We don't need to have the truck come down there to balance out the water pressure. No, that's right. Well, I don't know what you're getting at there with that truck. At a certain point in time, we were told, or it was mentioned, that the water pressure was insufficient. I was told that too, and that the truck, the bumper truck, in good French there, in good French parlance, the bumper truck was needed to offset the balance. Fine. So you'll have sufficient pressure by doing what you need to do, what you've told us you'll be doing. That's right. Of course, that the looping procedure that we've adopted gives rise to a redundancy situation, or redundant situation that will offset one situation by another. You see, Mrs. Collier, we tapped into some grants to ensure the safety of individuals there, and because of the fact that there was some water that was present in those areas, and it convinced the minister to go ahead with that. And water is an essential need, Fine, thank you, Mr. Campo. All those in favor then, thank you. Information report, Jean-Marc Lalonde Area Rental, Rockland Field Archers, Mr. André Lalonde. Let me see here. I move that the report to LOI 2018-11-01 be received as information. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Questions? Councillor Levert. Well, I believe that if we take a look at the information that was given to us, if we go with the preferential rate, how many individuals are part and parcel of the archery club? Close to 100 individuals. In any event, I wanted to read the letter again to determine how many individuals were taking part in archery. situation or archery activities. Now, from a season that runs from the 1st of September right up to April, even if they were called upon to pay out $20 per member, it was really not all that much, really. Those who play hockey are called upon to pay a lot of people. Even those that follow yoga pay more. It costs us $55 per hour. Oh, no, $55 per evening. So if they take up, say, 2 hours, well, it's still $55. Yes. We're talking about the archery club folks here. Okay. Salary and manpower. Mr. Boucher, if I might add this, Mr. Mayor, strung along a complete year's expenditures, it would be approximately $20 per member. To take part in the event, it would take $20 per member if they have 80 members. It seems to me that that's close to nothing, really. I understand that she states in her letter that there are complete families, even if there are 3 members of the family, $60 for a complete season, involved in a family-related activity. That's not much, really. So we'll receive this as an information, for information purposes. But had we not voted on this? No, we want to determine the cost. Well, it will be brought back to the regular meeting of council. Will they come up with a recommendation so that we can vote on this now? Yes. Mr. Mayor, if you give me a directive to come up with a recommendation, I will recommend, well, based upon the information that's at hand, yes, we based ourselves upon this. I recommend that we preserve the rental rate, given the excellent arguments that were made, in favor of keeping them. And they're also working under a reduced rate system that's, I shouldn't say imposed upon them, but that is offered to them. All those in favor? Carried then. Well, that's fine. Let's go on then, folks. Let's go on. The recommendation that I have right now is that we receive the report for information purposes and that we offer them the preferential, rental rate offered to some clubs and some entities. Fine. They'll be subject to those rental rates then. That's fine. Let's go on to item 9.6, wastewater treatment works 2017. Be it resolved that the council receives the report titled Rockland Wastewater Pollution Control Plant 2017 annual report be received for information purposes. Just a tiny question here, and I know that probably Mrs. Belanger, you might not have the answer here, and I take a look at the small graphic. We're talking about the maximum 3-day flow. When it's really solid, we wind up with about a 97% capacity. Am I mistaken here? We know that we have a lot of projects and a lot of improvement. Well, that 27% over a peak period, there were a lot of catch basins underwater during the flood. Remember that last year? So we exceeded our capacity by some 27%. A lot of problems were solved at that point in time when this occurred. Well, as I mentioned to Minister McKenna, when she determined that the Clarence and Rockland did not put in untreated surface water or water into the Ottawa River, contrary to many other municipalities. Mr. Leonard, there might be a mistake with regards to what's mentioned in page 993. We're looking at the 2017 average flow. That's fine, but the maximum day, 11,482. According to me, that's a mistake. According to me, it should read 16,867. What they're stating right now would give us does not give us an 87.17% reading. Could you please look into that and come back to us with regards to this? Fine. All those in favor? Carried, then. Thank you. Next item 9.7, Rockland Water System Annual Report. Councillor Zant. that the report titled Summary Report for Rockland Water Treatment Plant be received for information purposes, seconded by Councillor Levert. Any questions then? All those in favor? Thank you then. Item 9.8, Protective Services. Councillor Grimard. That report number PRO 2018-022 in regards to monthly statistics be received as information. Seconded by Councillor Zant. Any questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Fine. Again, Protective Services for September. That report PRO 2018-023 with regards to monthly statistics be received as information, seconded by Councillor Zant. We could have bunched all both together. There were inspectors that attended in our neck of the woods for fire alarms. You personally didn't receive any fines, did you? No, personally, things went well with me. There might have been other individuals that were not as lucky. And I won't look at anybody in particular. I said, no, everybody's okay. There's no problem. Don't bother them. Don't hassle them. And they had tried out the batteries also to make sure that all batteries were functioning properly. Fine. And somebody actually put a battery in his mouth. You're not the one, Mr. Villeneuve, that tasted that battery to see if it was acidic or not? No, that's fine. All those in favor? All right. Oh, come on, guys. Let's go on now to the Fire Station Construction Initiative. Councillor Lalonde. Yes, that report number PRO 2018-024 related to the current progress of the new fire stations be received as information. Seconded by Councillor Zant. Any questions? Councillor Grimard or Councillor Zant? I would have just like to thank. I know that we spoke to you about this during the winter clothing drive that we had, but I know that we always give a major push to upgrade our sidewalk network when we can, but the contractor is also a main responsible. But it's also nice that we have wheelchair accessible areas to ensure that wheelchairs have easy access to sidewalks. There are still some places in which wheelchair-bound individuals are not able to have easy access to sidewalks. To further on to what Mr. Zant has stated, I've noted that construction sites were put up and they're overlapping on to existing sidewalk facilities. But you see, and I even saw let them close up as quickly as possible, because there are some people on wheelchairs that wind up on private property that are, very poorly protected by plastic cones. If we could protect sidewalks during construction processes, that would be nice. There are two paragraphs that give me a bit of concern. Let's just make sure that council does not want a whole bunch of items that will come back.
Items removed during value engineering will be brought back to council for consideration to reintroduce to the project. Je dois m'exprimer pour moi.
Let me say this. We need to be well justified. We don't have a lot of contingency leeway left. If I look at a paragraph like that, I have a little bit of difficulty. It says that if you're refused once, you won't be refused twice. So let's not bring that back again. And I'm totally in agreement with you, Mr. Guillemot. We added a lot of things also the last time around. Yes, indeed. All right, that's it. All those in favor then? Carried. Monthly statistics. Construction, October. Councillor Levert, that the monthly construction report be received for information purposes. Seconded by Mrs. Simard. All those in questions? Or any other questions? Fine. Let's go on now to the capital projects list object. Mrs. Simard, that the ADM 027-2018 be received for information purposes. Seconded by Mr. Levert. Mrs. Bélanger, just a question. Maybe I'm mistaken, but the sidewalk project with regards to streetlights in between Saint-Jean and Corbeil. Does that fall within the capital expenditure project in light of the, because I've seen those resurfacing projects, I've taken a look at those, they appear on the books. I haven't seen anything black on white stating that something was done with this. Well, they should be safe. They ought to be considered as being safe. Well, I'll take your word for it. Let me look at this. Mr. Desnoyers? Yes. Item 6. Fine. Really? Well, it's not a big deal, but Mr. Keogh is still looking for those. Fine, thank you. I was just taking a look at my ward, and I didn't find it being mentioned. Mrs. Chouanière, the impact, the study was commissioned to take a look at the impact. Is that been funded through our through
From the development charges? Okay, so because I didn't see it in the list, that's one. So unless it's...
All right then. It's there. That's right. It's been funded in part through the development charges, I believe. Yes. Fine. Now, I didn't take a look at this study separately. Okay. Hold on here. Let me take a look at this because the study had not yet been commissioned. It had been approved in 2019. Yes. After discussions with Bridgill in 2019, this was the type of invoicing that was handed to us. This applies only to 2018. This list applies only to 2018. So we simply stated that it would be one of the projects that would be set down on the budget that would be subject to rebates. The rebates budget tap-in, yes. Let's go on now. André Lalonde to the Biosolids Lagoon. Yes, of course, I noticed that. Be it resolved that Council receives the report titled 2017 Monitoring Program Annual Report Biosolids Storage Lagoons. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Questions? All those in favor? Carried, then thank you, folks. So we're dealing with this for information services. Yes. Human resources provisions. The Committee of the Whole recommends that Council adopts the revised human resources policies attached to report number HR 2018-005, seconded by Councillor Chouanière. Questions? Yes, Councillor Zant. Well, it's not a question per se. I dealt with one particular point, and I spoke about this with many of you, and the one that gives me concern is the code and conduct.
In attendance at city events, la plupart c'est correct, act in a respectful manner, ça fait du bon sens, refrain from making derogatory comments towards other attendees, okay, fine, refrain from participating in gossip or rumor spreading. Là, je commence à...
You see, I find that we're getting into much more detail as need be. You know, respect any rules of standards established by the venue. That's okay. Some you know, are dipped in common sense. But rumor spreading, are we going to start dictating what people can and cannot do or can and cannot say? I don't know. And unacceptable behaviors and action. Once again, alcohol, of course, makes sense. If it comes into play, people might go far. But I think that sometimes we're limiting people's conducts a little bit too much, I think, maybe. It depends on the establishment that we're in. And there were a couple of those restrictions that would be subject to human resources discipline that were a little bit... I agree with her. Look.
To refrain from participating in gossip or rumor spreading. I mean, we're starting to micromanage messages now. We have, I deal with terms and conditions and policies and procedures at work. We have these catch-all kind of things. I'm starting to almost start thinking that this is like a catch-all. It's kind of like if you're not doing this, or that, well, then we'll get you on gossip or rumor spreading. I think those are issues that are dealt with by the manager, by whoever manages these employees. I think, look, I've been to certain Christmas parties and I know almost who are these maybe being directed to. I'm guessing it's an assumption. But I don't think we've ever had that big of a problem with people making derogatory comments towards other employees or individuals. I don't stay that long to... Right, but we have a thing called freedom of speech. I understand if they're actually going up and accusing someone in their face and starting to yell at them. We have an issue of confrontation that needs to be dealt with in a, an HR setting, sitting with their employees and the employer, discussing exactly what it is, maybe being put on probation or something. But when we're starting to now, and then we're asking people to report to the appropriate authorities, any witness, at any point anyone can come up and go, they did this. No one was there to notice that they did. It's your word against theirs. And now we get into something a little bit deeper into an HR situation where people start getting very, very frustrated at working at a city that seems to manage anything and everything that they say. So
I just think we could have left it at a more basic level. That's
be respectful.
Yes.
And but I think, like you said, we're getting a little bit too much into the details, into exactly what we don't want them to do.
So these policies were heavily researched based on other existing policies out there. So we're now along with the challenges and these things do go on in the workplace. But we'll take that under advisement and we'll relook at that section for you and bring back an amendment.
I don't agree. I think it has to be there because we represent the people, whether it's like the police, whether it's in education, even as a teacher myself, what I do outside of my working hours is as important as what I do while I work. Any people who are perceived as being decision maker, having an influence, having an authority
But this isn't
figure
just
as
for
a different figure.
decision makers, Dan. This is for everybody. This is not just for us as a council. It's for the entirety.
Yes, but everybody works for the city.
At city events.
Everybody works for
Does it
the
say
city.
city events?
Yeah, it's
but
on
it's
there.
at city events.
A lot of
Yes, that's what
attendance
it
at
says.
city events.
City events.
Right here. No, down.
Not for all of them.
Up.
Yeah, but you-
Ooh,
where it's-
limited to-
This is up.
While in attendance at city events.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not in your personal life.
But I think it's important because it's you're supposed to be at all times because you are paid by public funding. You're supposed to be in the proper
I just
conduct
look at
all
our
times.
Christmas event. It's a city event. And
We're serving alcohol and we expect people not to gossip into it.
When you have the party, it's only the employees together. A city event would be like a city event is like when there is a festival.
sorry,
When there
that's
are
your
the,
definition of city event. My definition of city event would be a Christmas party. It depends on your interpretation, and this is why it's too vast and open
But I think
to.
even at city events, people should still behave at a certain level.
It is determined in law that the Christmas party anywhere is a city event. Anything that's organized by the municipality of which this is and paid for by the municipality, it's a city event.
Even our festival de la Rivière would be a city event.
Yes.
It's all the same thing.
Yeah. But I mean, we're hoping that nobody would behave this way, but if they do, at least we have something that, you can discipline. It could be just a disciplinary measure with the employee.
For
Doesn't mean
starting
that
a
the employee
rumor,
will.
like, that's what I'm saying, now we're
seriously,
doing like a daycare event, you know? I'm sorry, it's just going a little far.
You can have rumors and gossips that politicians can't attend events then.
Mr. Navan?
You can speak for yourself.
Also, if you look at your thing about cannabis, arrived at the events over in not under the influence of cannabis, refrain from consuming cannabis at the event, or if allowed by law, only consume cannabis in legally established areas.
That's
So they
what
could
the-
go down on the street, smoke cannabis, and come back.
Medical, the same.
No, it's not medical.
No.
Well, it's legal, we need to understand.
Oh, I know, I agree. But I mean,
As long as the
I don't think it's worded the way it should be.
No.
Monsieur Grimal.
I think we could solve that. There's various policies for fit for duty. I don't see any time without consumption. So that leaves a lot of interpretation. You may want to check with other agencies where they say you have to be fit for duty, including your last consumption 8 hours before your next work attendance. At least you put a time, because there's a difference between drinking alcohol and consuming cannabis. The alcohol, I can sip a glass of wine for many hours and not be intoxicated. You start smoking after a few puffs, it's medically proven your system is already affected. So I think we may want to revisit that and
I think so.
and just to tackle, sorry, go ahead.
There may be a legal aspect to that because these have all been reviewed by our
Yeah.
corporate HR lawyer.
But-
But I'll ask them.
Yeah, and I agree with the other part about the gossip. I don't see anything about social media. Putting stuff by employees on social media that would bring the organization into disrepute. I don't see that, and I believe there is a rule for that. I could give you some funny stories, but I won't. But some people make bad decisions on social media and lose their job. But I don't see anything about this for our employees, including us, the use of social media. So.
I was listening to a program about the cannabis, and it was saying that it could go out to 24 hours to be still in the system. So it's very delicate to put a time because it depends on the weight of the person. It depends on a lot of things.
But if you don't put anything, you could have somebody thinking they can do it. They can come after 2 hours of their last consumption.
But the same like when the police stop somebody because they drank some alcohol, they don't specify that you cannot have more than so many ounces or a time. It's whatever is in the blood level.
I think we want to have something solid for our employees to be able to come to work. And if they're operating equipment, we should do anything we can to make sure the policy is as precise as possible. And I understand what she's saying too, but.
Other question? Yes, we'll bring that back again at the next meeting. Yes, next meeting of the 17th. Are there other questions? Fine. I had another questions. It's going to be available in both languages also later on, will it? Yes. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Other items. Do any of you have any questions? Councillor Levert. Yes, Mr. Boucher. After I had occasion to speak to Mr. Jean Sancartier, they spoke about what happened with the canteen. Of course, we entered into a contract with the canteen people. We don't charge them anything. They have an exclusive contract, right? That's right. Now, this particular exclusive contract, I believe, next time that we enter into a signed contract, it should run from September to April, so that if ever, whatever group, if a group of Boy Scouts want to organize a supper or a 2-day activity, they won't be able to make use of a canteen for their use because the canteen folks right now have an exclusive use and operation of this during the season in which they're there. Otherwise, it would be kept closed. Mr. Boucher? Well, Mr. Mayor, if you'll allow me, the canteen is operational from September to April, and if they have the opportunity, as you know, for the past 4 to 5 years, we've had difficulty in obtaining someone to lease out this canteen, and we had to lower our costs to have somebody that will lease this canteen this year. And if we say to the managers of the canteen right now, we're removing opportunities to make money, we're again shooting ourselves in the foot. So they can sell food upstairs. It's legal. They can, offer spaghetti upstairs. It's legal. But when they rent a room, or when the festival folks have the room, they have access to the canteen upstairs. They have access to make food upstairs. However, downstairs, and they were selling food at the arena itself, right, during the course of the festival? Exactly. But they were selling liquor. They were selling booze. So if they want this, we can try to say to the canteen renters, you won't have proceeds of the sales of that activity if ever it's held. However, I dare say that that we have difficulty in securing a canteen operator. We have one now, and if we have an opportunity to generate profits, fine, because she doesn't make millions out of operating this canteen. Listen, look, I know in Saint-Isidore also a similar situation would have cropped up, and now in between the 4th and the 6th, we have storm water problems. Apparently the pipe is full of sand. I was told that this was going to be corrected 2 or 3 months ago, but it has not been. Could somebody take a look at what's going on right now with this? It's going to be a problem. Really, it's going to give rise to a lot of problems. It's on Center Street, in between 4 and 6 Center Street, because this is a culvert that's covered up, so it needs to be cleaned up at the entrance of that particular culvert opening. Mr. Lalonde? Fine. Mr. Lavilleneuve, concerning the Albert Street fire. The Albert Street fire, I'd asked that question to the chief at the last meeting. In the past, we had a practice that there was a firefighter that remained there a certain number of hours after the fire had been put down. At present, I was told that this practice is not carried on anymore. Is it true that the municipality is now being sued at present because we didn't leave a person there for a couple of hours? I'm hard-pressed to answer this question at this point in time, Mr. Lalonde. Wasn't there equipment that detects whether there was still some heat left over at that spot? Yes. There are other manners in detecting hot spots, making use of a detector or thermal cameras that we make use of, to detect those types of things. I believe that we wish to purchase something like that this year. Yes, especially as of May the 19th, all of our trucks will be equipped by that. Were we sued? There was an intent to sue, but we were not sued. Another question I might ask also, Mr. Campo. Many individuals have mentioned this to me. When we worked on the edges of the Jérôme Corbeil Boulevard, on the southeast corner, the edging is protruding much closer to where the road is, and apparently people that are involved in snow clearing will have difficulty negotiating these. Well, yes, we'll correct this situation. Last Friday, we had an accident in between the corner of 174 and Highway 17, and cars were detoured on McTeers Road. And we thought this year of resorting to the possibility of doing some patching work. And we're not talking about patching work anymore because the city of Ottawa paved their end, and we're left with our end to pave. It's, I say, stated, when there's an accident that occurs in that particular neck of the woods, traffic flows onto McTeer, and the road is in very poor shape. I brought our engineer on site to take a look at this with me for a certain point of time, and definitely he told me it needs to be repaired. Yes, this is on our 2019 potential repair list. This section would have to be rebuilt anew. I think. But unfortunately, this is not what we recommend or what we propose. We're talking about a type of scratch coating treatment. It's going to help temporarily, but so you might look in 2019 to repair it or to do something. Well, it's on the budget. It's one of the budgetary items that needs to be taken care of. Councillor Zant? Fine. Fine. We have to take a look at this. Jean-Marc finished his question. Yeah. No. It's because he wanted to mention all of the lights that are burnt out usually. I'm just wondering when we're going to start replacing burnt out street lights. Well, the installation contractor, with regards to street lights, there were no additional fees attached to this, but it takes a little bit more time. Now, during this point in time, it's not our fault and it's not their fault either. It's just that street lights, we're waiting upon those, waiting upon them to be replaced, and we're in November now. So, look, when they're going to start up, it takes them about 6 weeks to finish up. Does anything prevent them from going ahead with this? Well, they were in the process of finishing the other job. It required them a bit more time to finish, and that's why they're again, Councillor Lennon. Again, with regards to street lights, I didn't ask any questions, but there were street lights. Now there are 91 that are now burnt out. 91 street lights that need to be replaced. Some have been burnt out since February of this year, and they've noted down addresses. There's one at the corner of Giroux and La Violette that are burnt out. Both at the entrance onto Laporte Street, Laporte and Chamberlain. Both of these street lights are burnt out. And he said that he was going to take a look at those. And the others, the LED street lights, they're supposed to start up in November. They ought to complete this as of November or end of November. Not finish it, but it's going to take them 6 weeks. 6 weeks from the time in which they start in November. It's going to be a Christmas gift. In Saint Pascal, there were some cuts made on Main Street. And let me tell you, it's terrible at peak travel time there, at peak time, around 5 p.m. Yeah. So, I mean, they've fenced out. They've cut about half of the street there. And they've put in a fire hydrant on the residential property. This needs to be done very soon, because it seems that this was drawn out long enough. It needs to be done. Final work needs to be done on this. We might, obtain further information to determine when it's going to finish. You might give them a little bit of a nudge to have them work faster. In between peak hours, peak travel hours, fine. And also the yellow lines on Carillon between Laurier and Highway 17. All these are natural gas markings. Are they putting in new lines or adding on to existing facilities? So it's for the purpose of upgrading. In September, when ATG is making an application, they just didn't have enough gas that was coming.
Incidentally, and luckily, Enbridge had this expansion plan because they're building it to support the growth that's happening in Clarence Crossing.
Okay, thank you.
No,
there was a plan.
Wait.
They're doubling up the line.
Mr. on Gagné, the ditch is filled up. And apparently there's a beaver dam that's been put up there somewhere close to that particular ditch. It's been all backed up, stopped up, and we need to do something about that. What, you don't want to take care of that, do you? Jeez, I don't have any dynamite with me. All right, adjournment called at 9:45. Is that early enough for you, Matty? Fine, thank you. Good evening, folks. We'll see you at the next meeting. Keep the smile on till then.